I'd like to welcome you all to the third of 4 webinars in UC Irvine Extension's second annual GATE webinar series. Tonight's topic is Troubleshooting Today's GATE Programming Obstacles, presented by Kathy Apps, Wendy Hayes Ebright, and Sandi Ortiz Ishii. This live session is being recorded. If you registered for this webinar through our free events website, you should receive an email with a link to the recording as well as a PDF copy of the PowerPoint presentation within 24 hours. My name is Lisa Katawaki, and I am a program representative here at UC Irvine Extension. And tonight I am logged on behalf of my director, Angela Jante. Just to give you an outline of what we will be doing tonight in the next hour, I'm going to start off with a quick overview of WebEx features so that you will know how to submit questions to our keynote speakers throughout the presentation. I will then pass it over to our panel, who will be presenting on tonight's topic, Troubleshooting Today's GATE Programming Obstacles. Next, I will give a short description of UC Irvine Extension's Gifted and Talented Specialized Studies program. If you are interested in gaining continuing education credit for this webinar series, please stay until the end to hear about the credit option we are offering. If time permits at the end of the panel's presentation, we will spend the remaining time answering any questions that you may have. At the end of the webinar, I will leave you with my contact information. If you have a question for myself or the panel regarding the content of this presentation, please submit it in the Q&A box and we will address it at the end if we have time. So if you look at the top of the participant list, you will see a row of columns. Press on the question mark icon and the Q&A panel will show up. Please feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. Tonight, we are extremely fortunate to have not one, but 3 presenters. Our panel is made up of Kathy Apps, Wendy Hayes Ebright, and Sandi Ortiz Ishii. All 3 of them are GATE program coordinators representing Santa Ana Unified School District, Long Beach Unified School District, and Garden Grove Unified School District. Together, this panel brings years of knowledge and experience in the area of gifted education. They will be speaking to you tonight on the topic Troubleshooting Today's GATE Programming Obstacles. Now I'm going to go ahead and hand the presenter ball over to them so that they can introduce themselves and begin their presentation. All right, take it away.
Good evening. This is Kathy Apps, and I'm joined, as Lisa told you, with Wendy Hayes Ebright and Sandi Ortiz Ishii. These are colleagues, and we all consider each other good personal friends, and we've worked together in gifted education for several years, and so we're really happy to be here tonight. We're having a lot of fun, and so the next thing I'd like to talk about is our presenters themselves. And so, again, I'm the AVID GATE AP coordinator for Santa Ana Unified School District for grades 6 through 12. My focus is secondary. And so I'm going to have Wendy introduce herself.
Actually, Sandi is going to go next.
Sorry. I'm Sandi Ishii, and I'm the GATE program supervisor in Garden Grove Unified. I work with many other programs as well, although that is my title, and I've been in education for over 20 years, and for many years I was a bilingual educator and then a GATE teacher in elementary programs, and have been supervising the K-12 programs for advanced studies for the last 5 or 6 years. And I will have Wendy now introduce herself.
Hello, this is Wendy. Like Kathy and Sandi, I'm also our GATE coordinator for Long Beach Unified School District, and I also coordinate the advanced placement and IB program for our high schools. This is, first I was amused by Kathy saying for several years. We've worked together for over, I think, almost a dozen years now, and we do have fun getting together and sharing ideas. I've been an educator for over 30 years. I've had 3 sons go through the Long Beach Unified School District, although I first became interested in gifted education when I was teaching in Huntington Beach. I actually returned from maternity leave and nobody would take the GATE class, and it was like it was a punishment, and I thought that was so peculiar. So by default, I became the GATE teacher, and ever since then I've found gifted education to be exciting, and we're going to share tonight some of the things we've all gleaned from our years of experience. If you go to, I guess Kathy's switching the slides. Okay. We decided early on we don't want to focus tonight on the negative aspects of the funding for gifted ed because there's no mystery there. We're all in the same boat, and so that could be a short presentation. So we decided instead to really talk about how we're trying, probably like many of you, to look at our challenges as opportunities. I don't mean to sound Pollyanna-ish, but I think that's the best route. So we're going to be looking at some of the challenges, but how we're trying to look at them as opportunities in each of our districts, and then with allowing you time to ask questions later on at the ending.
This is my turn. Okay. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on GATE, and again, we have our focus will be, we're not sure of our audience out there, whether you're teachers or coordinators or in charge of programs, or parents, and just as an aside, all 3 of us really began our journey here as parents of gifted children, and often those GATE educators out there really understand the impact of and the importance of the program through our own children and seeing how it served that need. So although we didn't each talk about it, this is as a mother, that's where we started as well. Now, just to give you a little bit of background about GATE, in the state of California, it's not a mandated program, and that is not a new thing. Every state has the right to be able to decide whether to mandate a program or not. And in some states it's mandated, in some states it's permissive or allowed, just depending on what the district allows, and that's the way we are in California. So each one of our districts has a GATE program because we wrote a plan to the state. That doesn't mean that you may belong to a district that chose not to write a plan, or so it could vary from district to district in our state, and that's kind of the way it is. One of the resources out there that not a lot of people know about through the NAGC is a document that shows all the how each state mandates or allows programs to either be permissive or mandated and who's in charge. So that document can be found through NAGC if you go onto their website, the National Association for Gifted Children. So in California, it's not a mandated program. If you have written a program to the state, then you may have a program. Our California Ed Code has recommended GATE program standards. And we're going to show you a little snippet, I think Lisa's going to put it up, of some of the standards that are out there. So let's see, if you watch your screen, this may pop up. And what you're going to see are the program standards that relate directly to the classroom. The program standards come in 8 sections. Those sections might be sections like identification, budget, social emotional needs, and so on. These standards relate to curriculum and instruction.
The ones that you're looking at.
The ones that you're looking at currently. If you want to see all of the standards, each one of our district websites has a link to all of the 8 sections of the program standards. And there's another document which we would highly recommend through the California Association for the Gifted, and they have a guidebook for parents of gifted students or teachers of gifted students. And this document has the program standards, all of the program standards on them. And that can be purchased through them. And it actually, I think it's on their website as well. But what you see here are the program standards that relate directly to teachers, which I'm going to make the assumption that most of you out there are educators. And this is what guides, for us, it's what guides our professional development and guides what we feel the expectation should be if we have a teacher that's instructing gifted children. And I'm not going to go through all of them. I think that you can probably read through them and see the types of things that are on there. And if you want to get more information, you can dig into our websites or CAG's website. And Wendy wanted to say
I just wanted to add that if you go onto our websites for each of the individual districts, each district uses those recommended standards that the state has for gifted ed to develop our school site plans. So you could see first the standards as they're written and then our own district plan that was developed based on or using those standards. And I think we're going to be addressing some of that tonight also, and how some of the things in our plans maybe we don't have money to do right now and how we're adapting them to meet the needs and hopefully keep the message alive.
And just as another aside, here in Orange County, all of us leaders for gifted programs, we have an organization, OCC Gate, where we get together and we really support each other in writing those plans. And we welcome any of you who, if you happen to belong to a district that is maybe doesn't have a plan, or you need ideas to be able to put into those plans, and we welcome you to take a look at what we have in our plans and use any of those ideas that you'd like for your own districts, because we do support each other in that way. Going on to what we might consider the challenges. The GATE Ed Code has currently been suspended, and it's in the Tier 3, which means that the district has flexibility to use GATE funding for non-GATE purposes. And obviously that is the challenge piece of why we're here tonight. And it's not just GATE, it's many other programs, and it's just districts are needing to use money to be able to stay afloat, and it's understandable. So it's something that many programs are having to, see what they can do, think creatively, think outside of the box to be able to maintain services and make sure our children don't suffer for the difficulties that we're dealing with in budget. Okay?
But Sandi, what I'd like to add is that, I think foremost in all districts' minds is what's best for kids. And I know that despite, these economic hard times in California, that, most districts still have a GATE program, and they're recognizing that gifted students are present in our schools, and that these kids also, need an appropriate education to address their special learning needs. So therefore, the challenge has become to maintain a quality program with less money. And we've all had to face this, and we've all talked about it, and we have to say, okay, what is essential? Coming down to, is it, it's not only are we identifying the students, and each of our districts have continued to do that, but also how are we making sure that their needs are being met in the classroom, both their academic and their social-emotional needs, and how are we also continuing to communicate with parents and providing them with the information they need to help their gifted child at home. And so some of the following ways to do this is,
so as we look at the updating your program slide, there are lots of different kinds of things that we're doing or that you can do in your own district, and whether it's at your school, on your school website, or your maybe district website, one of the things we utilize a website for is to be able to post maybe the presentations that you do for parents or other kinds of presentations for support or additional resources. And this is something that you may find on each one of our websites. We each have a GATE website. Another website that would have other kinds of training for you to take a look at is on our OCC GATE website. We post our conference presentations there as well, knowing that teachers may be able to utilize these as resources, or parents as well.
One of the things, too, is in looking back at your plan, and if you're a teacher and you're not aware of the plan, or if, again, I think we're kind of at this point addressing people who are in charge of GATE programs, whether it be a site administrator or a district administrator, even a teacher, because in our districts, yes, we write a district plan, but in each of our districts, each site also then writes a site plan. So taking a look at that and revisiting it, and it's time to take it out, dust it off, and say, you know what are we doing in each area of the standards? So, for example, you might want to really concentrate on one part. One might be, what are we doing with, parent education? And if you aren't bringing in consultants, what are you doing? Bringing in, having teachers come in. Okay.
Yeah, I like that idea, Kathy. Last month for our parent advisory committee, we had. Well, first of all, at a previous meeting, we just pulled the page from the GATE standards that talks about parent information, and so we really looked at that up closely to see what parents should be offered. But then last month we focused on the social and emotional support standard or section of the standards at the parent advisory committee meeting, and we had our GATE counselor and our GATE school psychologists come, and so they presented ways for parents to support their children in the social emotional categories, and they talked about characteristics of the gifted and perfectionism and things like that. So, and actually I think some of then posting those things on the website afterwards I think are valuable. But I think also just tapping into the resources that you have and not being asserting yourself and asking people for favors. I'm finding a lot more people are willing to do bartering on their expertise, and so I know the three of us have done some of that ourselves, but that could work as well.
I know for our parents, one of the things they really enjoy hearing from are our teachers. And if you're looking for parent education opportunities, sometimes we teachers take for granted the kinds of things we do with the children in the classroom and think that the parents might not be interested. Yet the kinds of things that we do often, they're really of great interest to parents, and they want to tap into maybe how they can utilize some of these strategies to support their children at home. For instance, one of our last parent trainings we did was Dr. Kaplan's scholarliness, and talking about how the parents might be able to support these habits that a scholar would show at home as well, knowing that it would be further supported at school. And another training that we've done, a teacher who was an AP teacher just talked about AP programs and what they are. Sometimes, again, we make assumptions that parents may know these things, but having a teacher talk from their perspective on some of these issues or things that might be coming up in their child's life are really of great interest. And it's not a major consultant. It's but yet it's a teacher with expertise in understanding programs. So that is another option in being able to bring support to your parents or to your community.
Do we want to show the scope and sequence here?
You know what? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Another, if you could put the scope and sequence up, and either one is fine. Another thing that we want to talk about is in updating your plan is looking back at what you do offer. And sometimes we get complacent in what we've put out there, and I think sometimes we need to go back and say, what can we cut out? What do we need to add? And it's really, sometimes it has something to do with money, but a lot of times it's just, let's catch up. Let's see what we can offer our teachers.
Okay. And what we see here, what you're seeing is our GATE scope and sequence for our elementary GATE programs. And although you don't see any GATE standards attached, each one of these elements is supported by one of the GATE program standards for curriculum and instruction. And when any kind of, if we have collaboration for our teachers or training, it all revolves around these different elements of our scope and sequence. And while there's many parts and pieces to it, what's interesting is that this was not created by me or by any administrative team at all. This was something that our teachers together in learning and in the training that we've received over the years and looking at those GATE program standards, we see that this is what brings strength to our program and support to our gifted children. So the teachers, we all created this together as a collaborative team, and this is, if we are to look at the services that are provided for our children, our gifted children, that each one of these elements are normally reflected in the program. So it gives a kind of a framework of understanding of the kinds of training that we need to bring, and it's the ultimate goal to be able to provide these services. And we created a similar one as well for 7-12, and I think that Long Beach and Santa Ana have a similar kind of scope and sequence.
Okay, Lisa, can you put up the high school scope and sequence? Similar to what Long Beach and Garden Grove has done, also Santa Ana has created their scope and sequence. And I'd like to share with you the high school scope and sequence. And the point of us sharing this is, again, as Sandi said, we have to still serve our kids. And so, making sure that, remember when, you kind of go off a lesson plan and you've used the same kind of a lesson plan, and then all of a sudden you start saying, I don't need to look at that lesson plan. And you start kind of winging it, and the lesson falls apart. The kids are a little confused, and you have to kind of come back to that plan. Well, this is the same thing about a scope and sequence. These scope and sequences have been created by teacher teams, and in the one that you're looking at, I know it's very text heavy, but it's our plan. We have one for pre-K for grades 1 through 5, and then 6, 7, and 8. And this is the high school one, because I think oftentimes we concentrate on elementary and intermediate. Oftentimes the high school kids are left out, or we think, okay, well, it's advanced placement, but we still have to remember that this is one of the most important times that they're going to begin to look at who they are, how they're connected to society, how they're going to connect to life. So for example, in ours, we look at core curriculum, the parallel curriculum, the core curriculum, curriculum of connections, curriculum of practice, and the curriculum of identity, while still, if you look at the side tabs, still making sure that we're hitting upon all those basic elements that we know is good teaching, having goals and leading questions, having depth and complexity, making sure we include the independent study and those critical and creative thinking skills, and including the opportunity to dialogue and debate. Differentiation is very big right now, or it has been for a long time, but I think that it is becoming more and more obvious that we have diverse learners, diverse students in many different ways in our classrooms, and that we have to differentiate. Money, to differentiate doesn't cost money. this is something that we have to do for our kids. And so taking out those scope and sequences and looking at them as our lesson plans, as a guide. If you don't have a scope and sequence, get together with your grade level team. Get together with your school's GATE teachers. Include other teachers. What else can you include in your scope and sequence, and create your own kind of a roadmap. Okay, Lisa.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to look at what else we can do.
So I'm going to kind of dovetail on something Kathy said about getting together with other teachers, which is not always an easy thing to do. But one of the things that did happen as kind of as a grassroots effort last summer in Long Beach was our advanced placement teachers getting together just with content-specific or building cohorts for their AP groups. And we're going to be continuing that this summer. But it wasn't bringing in a fancy speaker or something. It wasn't, of course, the level we wish it was, but it was a great start because teachers at one of the high schools said, hey, we want to meet, we want to share ideas, we want to share our best practices. And sometimes at the high school level, in IB classrooms or honors or AP, sometimes that's, a lonely job if there's not someone else at your school to talk to about that. So I think getting creative in how teachers have opportunities to work together and sharing what they're doing for the high school it's hard to do, but it's really appreciated. I was going to share a little bit about I didn't put our scope and sequence up there because one of the things we've done trying to be more creative is this year our GATE office shares an office with our AVID program, and so we share a lot of the same goals, and we've kind of developed some things together. And maybe Lisa, if you could put up our GATE essentials in the AVID program. And if there's parents listening and you're not familiar with AVID, AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, and they have AVID Essentials, which basically are the requirements for AVID. What you're looking at right now is we kind of spun off on that idea, but using our GATE standards that Sandi talked about earlier. We created essentials that would be just exactly that. What is essential? And so we basically said, here are the essentials for a GATE program, and you can see this is somewhat of a rubric. And then each school site decided to pick a couple essentials to focus on. Just pick 2 for this year to focus on. They gave them a way to talk about how to improve their program. So if the next page shows you the rest of the essentials, and I'll post, I'm not sure this is on our website for Long Beach, but I'll post it on there so you can look at it tomorrow, or, well, whenever you want to. So that's one thing we did that's kind of different this year. Another thing that's happening, here's the essentials right there. So those were our essentials. We asked teachers to, each one of those, when it's, each one of them has the stages of the rubric like the previous page showed, but I didn't put all that on here. So it has levels of excellence for each of those. And then when we meet now, that gives teachers a common conversation to have. How are we doing on our program? How are we doing with underachieving gifted learners? How are we doing with getting information to parents? So they kind of spun off from our standards. That was just one idea. It did not cost money. And it's keeping our program at the forefront when we have conversations, and we share this with principals, and that's one thing. A second thing I wanted to share that I think is happening in other districts as well, but I think has been very successful, and that is, again, a kind of grassroots where teachers will say, could you come to our school and do a training on whatever, content imperatives or using a universal theme, and so then they host it in their own classroom, and we just put that on our professional development calendar, and any teacher who's interested can go to that school on that day, and we go that way. We're meeting the needs of anyone who's interested, not just teachers of the gifted, but other teachers as well. And they're meeting in their own classroom, so that kind of raises the bar, and you see different kinds of room environment. And that's been very successful. It's not a money issue. Teachers, unfortunately are not paid to come, so it's kind of come when you can come, and we'll come deliver the goods. And that's been pretty successful. How about Kathy and Sandi? How about you in your?
Well, you know what? I kind of like your GATE. I like your essentials.
you can use them.
Can I use that?
Yes,
So
make
that's
them your own.
Beauty. That's the beauty. That's what that we're talking about here. Is I like the term grassroots, Wendy, because sometimes things get so big, the machine gets so big, and we hire out all kinds of this, and we have our own in-house expertise in so many ways. What you're doing tonight, being on a webinar, that's we've got to really look, I feel, at the web. We're going to talk about some other opportunities on the web. Website development, creating your own website or looking at other websites. One of the things I'd like to also really encourage people to look at professional organizations such as the California Association for the Gifted. And I know I have found their publications to have a wealth of ideas. I usually, hold, when I hold my site coordinator meetings, I will Xerox off a copy, and the communicator says in there, they give you free reign of Xeroxing for educational purposes. And I'll share an article with my my sites and say, could you please, it might be in a discussion point for their own site gate meetings. Also, NAGC, both of these organizations have just high quality, very informative, full of ideas publications. They have Gifted Child Quarterly it's more research based, but the research base is sometimes very adds to our food for thought. There's also another magazine that we use called Gifted Child Today. For example, the one that just came in the mail has articles all about math, and everybody's always saying, what do we do about math? The math people, how do you differentiate and how do you challenge the bright kids in math? And there's 3 articles: enhancing deep mathematical thinking, or looking even at using tiered assignments in AP Physics, and so forth. So, joining these organizations, the goodies that come with that or membership, such as these magazines. Another place that I like to visit is the National Research Center for the Gifted. This is on the University of Connecticut's website, and a lot of free research. But on the research, also, when you read through these articles, they give good ideas of what works and what doesn't.
Kathy, for some of the things on their website at UConn, they have great free resources that you can download and use. For example, the bookmarks. They have bookmarks for differentiating that can be really become task cards or independent study topics, or they really would, I think, work well across all different grade levels and could be applied in different ways. But there's a lot of free things that when you looked at the research, you can download the teacher resources for free.
And a question came up about the websites, and at the end of the presentation, we will have a link to many of these websites that we're mentioning, so that you can...
The resources, yeah.
So in the resources. There is, Wendy, you want to
answer? The question about who created the Gate Essentials, Gannon, those were created... Well, the inspiration really came, I have to give Avid credit for that, but then we have site coordinators that we meet, now we're meeting every other month, but they meet with their own teams at their own school sites. So when we meet, that's kind of guided our work for this whole year. We started last year just talking about the idea. I showed them the Avid Essentials. Then they actually created that grid, that the first page I showed you that showed the descriptor for each one, that from minimal or not gate to minimal to exemplary. The teachers created what would be written in each of those levels. So it came from teachers representing all the different school sites.
I just want to add something to the teachers in the audience, and in thinking about adding to your practice and adding to some of these strategies in your own classroom. And I would really encourage you to have a colleague that you could possibly work with. Often teachers don't realize the kind of support they can get from their own site administrator or their principal through perhaps release time or that kind of thing. And I think that for many of us who were once teachers and now in this position, one of the things that really enhanced our practice the most was to be able to co-plan and co-teach with another teacher. And many of us during the times when there was money in gifted ed went to maybe some of these institutes that CAG offered or USC offered, where we were able to see teachers doing the kinds of instruction and implementing some of these program standards and seeing how they work with with children. So I would really encourage you to find a colleague and build those collegial relationships and request support from your site administrator to be able to maybe be released to just do a lesson together and practice some of these strategies together. And you might be pleasantly surprised, and really best practices show that this is something that will really support. Okay, I'm getting this high sign here.
That's kind of the next slide, though, because we're talking about the fact that we all have developed. There are people at every site who, when we had money, we did send people to things, and so there is expertise. I'm just going to go ahead and share one thing.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
One of the things I've seen at one of our schools in Long Beach has been the school hosts their own this is the second year they did it. They liked it so well the first time. They host their own differentiation week. School-wide, it's not about their gifted kids, but it's using a lot of the same strategies. And so the teachers just offer to do a mini session, and that week it's in lieu of the normal faculty meeting, and there's an expectation that every teacher will attend 2 sessions, and they're offered every morning and every afternoon. But it's their own teachers offering a session in their own classroom. So they are all just sharing what's working and having it in their own classroom. No one has to drive anywhere. And that's been so successful. If there's a topic that they want, that the faculty has wanted more information on, they'll call the gate office, and we'll do one of the sessions for them along with everybody else. But basically they have 10 opportunities to have short professional development that one week. They do the same kind of week for technology. So I think that's a good example of taking advantage of their own in-house expertise.
I'd also like to add, kind of along the same lines, as Sandi's talking about in-house expertise, of when you look at coaching opportunities, one of the things that Santa Ana has done, and we had done over the years, and as we look back at it now, they've come in very, very valuable because teachers want to see. You can hear about it, but let's see it in action, and that's creating, a library of video and sample lessons, and being able to use those and check them out, and having a library that you can, that somebody can come into your office and say, can I, I'd like to see how a teacher introduced depth and complexity. I'd like to see how you create themes and generalizations. What does it look like? I'd like to try a Socratic seminar. Can you show it to me? So when a teacher, the video libraries, the sample features, and, if you can't, get some sort of sub-coverage or, you can't go visit another classroom, the video is the next best thing. One of the also things that a lot of the teachers we've seen in different conferences and in different districts is teachers are so wonderfully, caring, and they want to share their resources. They're so proud of their rooms, and taking pictures and posting them on your your gate website of good rooms, or getting together, being a PLC, the Advanced Learner PLC, or getting together and having conversations about what works in your classroom and so forth, and then getting together and helping maybe create bulletin boards in each other's rooms, and instead of just having one person trying to figure that out. Okay.
One of the programs that we've done in our district recently, we had a collegial partner day, and what we do for this particular one, we have I had a team of 3 teachers who teach a 1-2 combo, and they were released to work with a veteran teacher who has had lots of experience in working with our young gifted children, and they were able to watch her demo a lesson and go through what a good model of instruction would look like and be able to co-plan a lesson, and they partner taught that same lesson later on in the afternoon. And it was a day that was really driven by where they felt their need was in looking at that scope and sequence and working with another teacher that is in the field, and being able to have that time to just pick each other's brains and really practice instruction with each other is such a powerful experience, and it was a total cost of a sub for each one of them. Again, something that many sites, particularly if you have a Title I site, you can afford a substitute day to be able to work with an expert teacher or a teacher that you really respect their practice or who has had the experience or training. So that's another thing that you can request or ask for or build into your program at each individual site. It doesn't have to necessarily be done at the district level.
Okay, so
we're talking about advocacy, and one of the things I think Kathy sort of referred to this earlier, but the idea of the conversation about giftedness, one of the things I've found to be successful is to open the discussion a little wider than just talking about the GATE program. Some of the questions you're putting up there are about should all the teachers be GATE certified and that kind of thing. All the teachers at a school site be GATE certified. I think opening the conversation to include more than just the GATE identified students is really important. So when I'm spreading the good news about differentiation, I feel more comfortable talking about advanced learners or able learners or proficient and advanced proficient learners, because more people buy into that conversation and are willing to listen. And then you can get into, and you're kind of on a roll then, and you can bring in, now let's talk about the gifted as well. But the idea of having all the teachers at a school site, I'm assuming, and maybe incorrectly, but I think that might be for an elementary or middle school. I say that's an awesome idea and a noble goal. But I do know from, I think I can speak for the 3 of us, that's something we spend a lot of our time talking about, teachers becoming comfortable using strategies for differentiation. I think you have to be realistic and start small. We all 3 also work with schools that are in program improvement. We don't just go out and just meet with small groups talking about gifted ed. So when we're advocating for the gifted, we have to also think about the reality of what everybody's struggling with right now. And the reality is, as Kathy said, is differentiation, is for everybody, not just the gifted.
And one of the things that is often referred to by Dr. Kaplan at USC through much of the training that she does, that the state's really gifted educations and these strategies are something that gifted students must have to be able to thrive and reach their potential, while all students can benefit from them. So it isn't something that is exclusive to gifted students, although gifted students really must have them. So we can build this into the conversation. One other piece, it got me thinking about RTI, and RTI is one of the things that we're really looking at nationwide as a support system for all students. And RTI often goes from intensive to strategic. RTI, response to intervention, and and it ends at benchmark. Often the conversation ends at benchmark, and this is where we can bring into the conversation that what about our advanced students, and how can we further support our advanced students? And this is something where when we're looking at maybe the UA components, universal access components, and how we can really further support our students who have great differentiated needs. One of the things that we did is we added that additional component of universal access for the advanced or extended learner to that RTI, or response to an intervention model, to be able to support teachers who have the extended learners. So again, kind of bringing in those conversations for the advanced learners, that they have special learning needs as well, and they are out there as well. And as we move kids up, we need to continue to further support those students who are actually excelling.
And I'd like to also add, Sandi, that is so important. A lot of times, a lot of our districts and a lot of our classrooms are realizing the power of data, and we're both hard data and soft data, but in looking primarily at benchmark scores and using that data to drive our instruction. But a lot of times in those conversations, people will say, "Oh, well, look at it's all green. They're all good," But that's not necessarily so. Those students also need that continued trained teacher who can push them even farther and to meet their potential. Sandy Kaplan has a great, a great saying that it always sticks in my mind, and it's this: educators are the bridge between potential and performance. And so if we just say they're in the green, they're good, let's only concentrate on these kids in orange and red, which, yes, we need to concentrate on those kids too. But we have to remember that if we don't pay attention, if we, it's so easy, especially for our most able kids, to begin to slip anonymously into the margins of the school site, and we need to remember to address their needs all the time. The last thing I wanted to do in advocacy too is say, we're not an island anymore. Gone are the days of this is a categorical program and this is a categorical program, and this one over here EL and BITSA and special ed and so forth. We have to join forces. Otherwise, we all serve the same kids, and many of our kids, gifted kids, are in these other programs.
I think I just say one thing. I know we're running out of time here, but I also wanted to say parents are such a strong voice in advocating for their advanced learners, and whether it's through, if you have a school loop program where you're or just speaking out, just being the voice at a PTA meeting. Parents, people, educators listen to parents when they speak, and so I think just remembering, don't forget this group. We're a subgroup also, and it's important that we're part of the conversation. We're going to we've kind of touched on a lot of things of the spillover. There's a lot of questions on here, so I think maybe we might want to.
Well, one of the
let's
questions.
Finish the last couple slides and then come back to the questions.
Or do you want to do that? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I think we've kind of talked about the spillover effect of actually, I think it was some of the questions about, how do you get GATE certified? There's many different certifications. Some individual districts have them. Certainly UCI has a wonderful GATE certification. Cal State Fullerton, UC San Diego. So if you, at the end, you'll see our email addresses, and if you have more questions about where to go to find information about those, you can email one of us. But
there's also questions about maybe seeking out those good lessons or ideas to utilize in the classroom. And one of the things we really encourage everyone to log on to after this is occgate.org, and that's and you'll see that in embed on our resources. But if you go there and go to our past conference, what you're going to find is a posting of all the presentations and the presentation PowerPoints and that kind of thing, because we really want those to be resources for you. The teachers at our OCC GATE conference, it is at UCI, and it's in October, and it's normally the third weekend in October. It's a Saturday, and it's really we try to keep it at cost, and usually we have a major speaker, but all the breakouts are teachers doing great things in the classroom and using all of the types of things that you saw in the GATE scope and sequences that we have, and that fall under the guise of the GATE program standards to support gifted children. And those strategies that you will see, there's also the email addresses of the teachers who did those presentations. All those teachers that have those PowerPoint presentations are just, they love what they're doing. They love their craft. And if you see one that really that you're really drawn to, or an idea that you want to try and you want to pick someone's brain, go ahead and use and email those teachers.
Okay, I want to address this question about do we have specific guidelines or essentials for transitioning high school gifted students into college and career? This is something I feel so strongly about, that we make these great assumptions that high school students have this happens effortlessly for them. And high school students who are in advanced courses like AP, IB, honors, they need the same level of support and guidance, and sometimes more than all the other students. So I think finding out what everybody at your school site has access to and making sure that it's still made accessible in those advanced courses. Sometimes from now till May, everybody's gearing up for AP exams, but these are kids that they're still high school kids first before they're gifted, and they need our support in finding those pathways. And I don't have a silver bullet for that. I just think we have to advocate for that. Is there any chance of children going to?
Okay, I think right now what we're going to do is we will take more questions, but I'm just going to pass it back really fast over to Lisa.
Okay, great. Thank you, you guys. You did an awesome presentation. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide, and this slide has their contact information, each of their email addresses. And then I just really quickly wanted to go over some of the GATE resources that we have available here at UCI Extension, and a lot of you have been asking questions about what you need to be GATE certified, about if there's any mentors out there to help you get started in your GATE classroom. And we have a lot of programs right now going on that will help you do those things. So our GATE Specialized Studies program is fully online, and it consists of 9 quarter units. Students have the opportunity to pick from a variety of electives with different unit values to make up those 9 units. Since the program is fully online, we are open to individuals here in California, as well as around the country and all over the world. We are also available on-site at schools and district offices. If you are interested in our GATE Specialized Studies program, please visit our website for more information and details about our course offerings. The link is provided on this slide. I also encourage you to join our free online Gifted and Talented Education community. Please follow the directions on this slide to become a member, and you will gain access to valuable resources, news, and events regarding GATE. As you may already know, we are offering a credit option attached to this webinar series called the Online GATE Mentorship. The mentorship is completely online and will run as an independent study program. The flexible format will give mentees 6 months, so the course runs from March 1st to August 31st to complete all coursework. And those 6 months are basically the class is that long, just so that it can go in an independent study format. You guys will have those 6 months to complete the coursework at your own pace. And some of the coursework is based off of these webinars. In fact, one of the assignments is to watch the recordings of this webinar series. So if you've registered, if you're logged in tonight, if you did the past ones, or if you're planning on doing the one next week, you've already done some of the assignments. And you'll have the opportunity to earn 1.5 units of continuing education credit, which can be applied towards our Specialized Studies program. My contact information is listed below on this slide, so please contact me with any questions about the mentorship or to obtain the official enrollment form. And the deadline to enroll is March 31st. So you'll be able to, we'll link you up one-on-one with a GATE teacher who has been in the GATE field for over 12 years. She's taught grades 2 through 12, and she'll be able to meet with you in one-on-one sessions and give you examples of projects that she's done in her classroom, as well as help you make lesson plans and stuff like that. So it'll be really helpful for you educators out there. Okay, we don't have that much time left. We have about 5 minutes, but we're going to go ahead and spend the remaining time taking some questions from you. So I know Wendy, Sandi, and Kathy, you guys can see the Q&A panel. I don't know if you saw any questions that you specifically want to go over.
I think there's one that I'd like to refer to, since we didn't really spend a lot of time talking about this. There was a question about 2E children, and that's kind of an acronym for twice exceptional, which is a student who might have a diagnosed special ed exceptionality as well as giftedness. And we see that we have so many more boys and girls that have Asperger autism or may have ADHD or some other struggles as well as being gifted. And this is something that we quite commonly will see. One of the resources that you really need to dig into is SING, and that I think we have that as a link, supporting the emotional needs of the gifted, and that is an organization that really looks, and there's a lot of information for both parents and teachers on that website. Another dual resource that I use, one is the PRIM, and it's the Pre-Referral Intervention Manual, and also the Behavior Support Manual, I believe it's the BSM. And both of these manuals are manuals that special education folks are very familiar with. They offer lots of ideas for interventions and support for our children who have exceptionalities or behavior issues in the classroom. So I really recommend, they're like $40, $50 each. I recommend every teacher just to have their own, and certainly every principal, and this will support giving you ideas on how to help those children with exceptionalities.
Okay, great. Was there any other questions that you saw that you wanted to address?
You know, I just want to piggyback on Sandi. Our twice exceptional students are in all of our classrooms. It's really important, if you have a resource teacher on your site and you do have questions about a certain student, you say, gosh, the student just really gets deeply into a subject, and work with them. And also, if you're at the district level, again, we can't work in isolation. I recently did a presentation for our psychologists in our district, and just updating them on information. So again, make sure we're working, with all, because our students are everybody's students. And just because we have a GATE student doesn't mean that they're not an EL. And I think we have a tendency to think, oh, they're just ours. So it's really important to look at the big global picture.
I wanted to add, since a lot of you are writing questions about resources and information about, about resources and finding other teachers to help mentor you, whether it's or finding someone like one of us to mentor you and starting a program and those kinds of things. I can't stress enough, first of all, that California Association for the Gifted, which is our state parent-teacher association, it's called CAG. If you just Google, it's on our resource list, but CAG is like the primary resource, and OCC GATE, which is also on the list. On our list of resources, we put the resources that the three of us refer to all the time. We refer parents to those resources, teachers alike. But they all, you can email questions to people, and they are the most generous and eager people to help you. And so I also think you could probably go to any school district website and look under their GATE program and email. Most school districts have a GATE website, and anyway, okay, well that's a wrap.
Okay,
we enjoyed it, and again, you can contact any of us if we didn't answer your question. We'd be glad to answer it for you, and you got our contact information. We also want to thank our our host tonight, Lisa. She made this. Working with three women, was kind of a challenge, and we all had our ideas. But she has been, a joy to work with, and UCI is a great provider of information. So thank you.
Thanks. You guys did great.
Thank you.
So again, I know a lot of you had mentioned that we went through the resource slide a little bit too quick, but I wanted to remind you, you are going to receive an email tomorrow, by tomorrow evening, with a link to the recording of this webinar, as well as a PDF copy of the PowerPoint slides. So if you forgot to write stuff down or anything, don't worry, you're going to receive that email tomorrow. And also, it'll have Sandi, Wendy, and Kathy's email addresses on there, as well as mine, so feel free to contact any of us if you have any questions about this webinar. So that's all the time we have here tonight. Again, if we didn't get to your question, please feel free to email us, and we'll do our best to try to find you an answer. One more thing before we end the session tonight. Next week, we will continue the series with our last webinar, titled Classroom Applications of 21st Century Skills. There's still time to register, so please visit the web link below. And please note the start time of 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So Kathy, Wendy, and Sandi, I want to thank you all so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us tonight regarding GATE programming. And I'd also like to thank all of you for logging in, and I hope to see you back here next week for the fourth and final webinar of our series. Have a good night, everyone.